Hello and welcome to this new edition of EcoAfrica, the environment show brought to you by NTV in Uganda, Germans Deutsche Welle and Channels TV here in Nigeria. I am Chris Elems and joining me is my co-presenter Sandra Trinobio.
Hi there, Chris. Nice to see you again. We've got a great program in store for you, so let's get started with a quick look at what we have coming up. We talk a lot about climate change, but today we'll delve into the topic of climate justice. In Somalia, we'll see how something useful is being made from discarded plastic. And entrepreneurs in Ghana are making a splash with their organic fertilizer. We do start today right here in Uganda. In 2006, vast oil reserves were discovered in the northwest of the country. Both national and international oil companies were thrilled by the news, of course, but many others found it alarming. The reserves are located beneath Murchison National Park, Uganda's largest and oldest conservation area. Fearing for the health of this fragile ecosystem, activists are demanding that plans for extensive oil extraction be stopped.
It's playtime for these children in the western Ugandan village of Ngwedo. But this place won't be home for them much longer. Their village lies in the middle of an area that's to be opened up to oil drilling. Charles Otema and his family were paid for their land by the French oil company Total.
I received money from Total. Even they promised to give me a house.
Some 5 kilometers away, a settlement has sprung up. More than 12,000 people in this region could be resettled in houses like this one. Oil giant Total and a Chinese group want to turn the East African state into an oil nation. The oil reserves stretch across an area of some 1,100 square kilometers. In September 2020, an agreement to begin building an oil pipeline was signed by the now late Tanzanian President Magufuli and Ugandan President Museveni. The project is expected to create thousands of jobs and make Uganda independent of imported oil. It came despite the Paris Climate Agreement to cut CO2 emissions by reducing the use of fossil fuels like oil. Dickens Kamugisha is one of the project's biggest critics. A lawyer and head of an energy policy think tank, he says it lacks transparency and he fears it will cause enormous environmental damage.
We need our world to be clean. On a continent like Africa, where you see that countries like Nigeria, like Chad, that have been producing oil for very many decades, they are suffering.
One example is the Niger Delta in Nigeria. In 2008, thousands of barrels of oil leaked from a pipeline, contaminating the soil with chromium, lead, and mercury. The people here are still suffering today.
Our lives in Bodo depended largely on the sea. We depended largely on the sea and sea foods. Today, almost all of those seafoods have gone. We can't find them again because of the oil spill. And this has led to a level of poverty I will yet not find the word to describe.
Murchison Falls is also set to be opened up to oil drilling by 2025. It's one of the most biodiverse parts of Uganda. The oil company Total says it will only drill 1% of the national park. It has promised financial support for new wildlife rangers and says everything should run in the most environmentally friendly way possible so as not to endanger wildlife. But for Dickens Kamugisha, that's not enough. He advises residents in the affected areas and wants them to be heard. He says oil drilling in Uganda needs to stop, but vested interests make that almost impossible.
Government admits that there is a lot of corruption here. Tell me any country in this world that has managed to successfully exploit oil when it is corrupt. Tell me why we have lost all these forests. We have lost all these wetlands. Yes, they can say that they want to ensure that they don't do the mistakes that other countries have done, but there is real evidence that what we are doing is even worse than those other countries were doing when they started oil exploitation.
Back in Nguedo village, Charles Otema may have received financial compensation for his land, but he says he did not feel free in his decision.
The money they pay for buying land is little. If I put complaining, I don't have money to go to the courts because I may have to buy lawyers to come and help me.
Now Charles Otema needs to help himself. The house he was promised is not yet ready to live in. But for the oil companies, the path has become a little easier.
In the public discussion around climate change, the focus tends to be on how high the Earth's temperature will rise, its impact on food security, or how unpredictable weather events will affect the global population.
So true, Sandra, but increasingly, we have also been hearing the term climate justice when it comes to fighting climate change. But what does that mean? Or let's put it another way, what is climate injustice? Ajit Niranja has a few answers for us.
What do we want? Climate justice! Climate justice now.
Two words that we hear more and more.
But climate justice is linked to racial justice, social justice, and intergenerational justice too.
This is why we call not only for climate action, but climate justice.
Two words that could define the century. But what exactly does climate change have to do with justice? Aren't we all in this together? To understand climate justice, we need to understand climate injustice. Who causes climate change, and who's hurt by it? Let's first look at who's responsible for putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and heating the planet. Imagine this grain of rice is 1 ton of carbon dioxide. Each year, the average person in Nigeria adds less than 1 grain into the atmosphere. The average person in India, 2 grains. In China, 7 grains. In Germany, 10 grains. In the US, 17 grains. In 1 year, the average American pollutes 20 times more than the average Nigerian. But the problem with carbon is that it stays trapped in the atmosphere for centuries. So it's not just about how much we add each year. It's about how much has piled up over time. Since 1850, that adds up to about 1,500 gigatons. Historical emissions matter today because countries are arguing about how soon they have to cut their net emissions down to zero. Big polluters like China, India, and Brazil look a lot less guilty when you consider they've only recently become part of the problem. In 2020, researchers calculated how far each country is responsible for pushing CO2 levels beyond a safe threshold that we crossed in 1990. The study takes into account how many people live in a country, how much they emitted throughout history, and includes emissions that cross borders through traded goods. The research shows that rich countries have outspent their carbon budgets. By a lot. The global north has emitted 92% of the CO2 that pushed the planet beyond safe levels. Asia, Africa, the Middle East and Latin America have emitted just 8%. Even a massive emitter like China is only just using up its carbon budget now. Unequal emissions are one big reason why climate activists are shouting about justice.
Everyone already is affected by the climate crisis, just on a very different scale.
This is Lena Niedecken from Fridays for Future Germany.
But if we look at the people ruling Germany and sitting at these decision tables for the past decades, they have not faced their responsibility.
They are destroying our environment. I think they need to act now, not later.
But hold up. CO2 heats the planet by the same amount whether it comes from Germany or Kenya. The climate doesn't care about geography. Well, geography cares about the climate. The second part of climate injustice is that even though poorer countries have done the least to change the climate, they're the ones getting hurt the most. Take heatwaves and drought. Heatwaves are becoming most unbearable across Africa, where droughts are even more punishing for crops. Then there's storms. Warmer air means that hurricanes and typhoons carry more energy and unleash more rain and stronger winds across the tropics. And by 2050, sea levels will have risen so high that floods which used to hit once a century will strike many coastal cities every single year. How can we make it fairer? Well, polluting countries can first turn off the CO2 tap and start removing their pollution from the atmosphere. Then they could pay reparations for using up more than their fair share of emissions. Some countries and companies are already doing something similar by paying poor countries to not chop down forests and instead plant trees. But instead of using that saved carbon to atone for their climate debts, they're using it as an excuse to keep on emitting.
So climate reparations have to be part of that discussion, and climate debt in particular is where we think about who is, we kind of divide up who is responsible for the kinds of ecological changes and climate changes we're seeing in societies, but also the kinds of climate-induced disasters that countries are facing.
This is Keston Perry, a political economist studying climate justice. He says reparations are needed to balance the scales, but that they won't be enough.
It is an interim measure. When I say that, I mean it has to be, we have to have a sort of much more longer term conversation around the economic system that we have nurtured and cultivated globally.
Reparations might sound radical, but rich countries already agreed to pay poorer ones to adapt to climate change. Imagine each of these Ps as $1 billion US. Rich countries promised 100 of them each year in climate finance by 2020. But it's 2021 and they haven't coughed up. In 2018, they gave 80 billion, but most of it was loans, not grants. UK-based charity Oxfam found that the real aid was actually closer to 20 billion.
Yearly, we have not been meeting the kinds of targets that even global north countries have set themselves.
Another approach takes climate justice more literally, holding polluters to account in court. The defendants argue that national courts don't have the right to rule on the climate because emissions and their impacts are global. But a new generation of activists are fighting for them to take exactly that responsibility and give them climate justice.
While we may be at the mercy of industrialists and politicians when it comes to climate policy, there are plenty of things we can do or ideas we can support to reduce the burden on the environment. This week's Doing Your Bit takes us to Somalia.
Plastic is as omnipresent a sight as goats on the streets of Mogadishu. Waste disposal or recycling is a huge challenge in Somalia. One company is turning the problem into a business opportunity and making a positive contribution to the environment.
We want to tackle the plastic waste problem in the city. We produce useful items like roof tiles out of plastics.
Around 80 women collect plastic items from the streets day in, day out, and drop them off at the company. They have to cover at least 20 kilometers on foot each day.
These women bring at least 2 to 3 tons every week to the factory, and we give them about 11 US cents per kilogram. This factory has created jobs for these displaced women living in the outskirts of Mogadishu.
The factory now permanently employs 26 people on site. The shredded waste plastic is melted down before being molded into shape. Every week, the factory turns out 10,000 roof tiles. And demand is growing, not least with the tiles costing less than half of conventional clay counterparts. It's hoped that in the future, even more roofs in Mogadishu will be adorned with tiles made of plastic.
And how about you? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
Since we haven't yet succeeded in reducing the endless mountains of waste, it's always inspiring to hear about the ways in which people create something useful and lasting from at least some of that trash.
Indeed, it is, Chris, but some garbage is harder to repurpose. Organic waste can of course be used for compost or biofuel. But wouldn't it even be better if food could be kept fresh longer and less was wasted? In our next report, we'll see how scientists have come up with a way to extend the shelf life of produce.
Fruit and vegetables rotting in fields, or during transportation to consumers. According to the UN Food and Agricultural Organization, or FAO, some 14% of food is lost after harvesting and before it reaches the market or retailer.
If you go to a particular country or particular village, you are likely to see varying levels of food losses. And these, depending on the situation, could go up even to 50% if you're talking about, let's say, fruits and vegetables. For example, if the farmer does not find the market for that particular food product in a timely basis. Now, this is a huge amount of food, and if you convert it into a monetary quantity, this is a lot, and if you convert it as well into the loss to the environment or the environmental impact, that is also huge.
When that happens, water, pesticides, and resources used for transportation are all wasted. Some 7% of global greenhouse gas emissions can be traced back to food loss and waste. The chief causes include problems with transportation and refrigeration. Getting the produce from harvest to kitchen table is a race against time. A California-based company, Appeal Sciences, might be able to help. Founder James Rogers and his team have developed a liquid that could extend the shelf life of fruits and vegetables.
Appeal is a little, exactly like it sounds, peel that we apply to the surface of fresh produce. You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it, but it slows down the factors that cause the fruit to age.
It helps even without refrigeration. Appeal is a liquid coating that dries into a kind of edible skin. The coating helps the produce last up to 4 times as long. That buys time to transport the produce, to store it, and eat it before it spoils. Appeal is based on lipids and other natural compounds found in fruits and vegetables. They're extracted and blended into a tailor-made solution.
By combining them in the right ratios, when they dry into an arrangement that allows us to control the factors that cause fruit to age, which are basically water going out and oxygen going in. So same materials, we're just teaching them a new trick by finding the right formula to apply to different kinds of produce in order to give them the same kind of protection that you'd have on a lemon, on a cucumber, or on an avocado.
Dutch wholesaler Nature's Pride sells some 120,000 tons of fruits and vegetables a year. They import from 59 countries, especially Latin America. In Rotterdam, the imported produce continues to ripen before it's sorted, packed, and shipped to the retailer. Spoilage and waste is a common problem in the industry, but the company hopes to minimize these losses in the future.
If a consumer throws food away, they actually bought it and they don't use it. And that costs money. So in the chain, if we don't throw it away, you don't spend that money wrongly. With Appeal, we can reduce food waste with 50% at the retailer level.
Food that used to land in the trash can now be sold. Every day, Nature's Pride treats 6 tons of avocados with Appeal before sending them to supermarket shelves across Europe. The main customers are in Scandinavia, Germany, and the Netherlands. Nature's Pride is the first company in Europe to use Appeal. They're planning to start treating other kinds of fruits and vegetables soon.
Returning now to Africa, we head to Ghana to check out another innovative project which aims to enhance food security. This eco-friendly approach to fish farming offers an additional benefit that boosts productivity in the gardens.
Yes, and better still, should they choose to, farmers can set up the low maintenance systems right on their property. And it's all organic. Sounds like a win-win situation to me.
These mangoes are looking good. Joyce Mensah has been treating her trees with organic fertilizers made from algae she grows herself. The plants are now less susceptible to bacterial black spot diseases, and their fruit is tastier too.
Changing the fertilizers to algae water, we see that is good, and it gives us much more fruits and much more healthy ones, because we are no more using the chemicals.
Many farmers here in southeastern Ghana rely on artificial fertilizers and pesticides. So did Joyce Mensah, until she heard about an eco-aquaponics system developed in the Volta region by 2 West African entrepreneurs. Each of the 24 pools on their farm contains its own small ecosystem.
These aquatic plants are plants that the fish know from nature. So they consume them voraciously, and they are very healthy. Now, it's significant, the part about the aquatic plants, because that is what makes the algae that we produce unique and powerful. Because these aquatic plants provide the base nutrient from which the algae is cultivated.
The pools serve a dual purpose: to grow algae for fertilizer and raise fish for food. And Frederick Kampa says the water's clean.
I really don't have a problem drinking it.
Concerned about desertification and soil degradation in the region, the business partners spent years developing their idea.
We have seen that soils are being degraded using unwholesome nutrients for farming, and that is causing a huge problem for the environment as well for the quality of food.
But it had to be affordable enough to make going organic attractive to farmers. The fertilizer, which sells for 50 pesewas per litre, a roughly 7 euro cents, is inexpensive, yet many farmers still need persuading. A farming cooperative in a nearby village has a serious problem with soil degradation. Matthew Dowenu talks to members about the organic method, but many are skeptical. They mention the difficulty of transporting heavy canisters to water the plants once a week, but Dowenu insists the pros outweigh the cons.
The chemicals are being washed into our water bodies, which affects the fishes in the water. And also people do drink the same water that they've been polluted by the activities of the farm. So it is having a lot of problems and difficulties in the environment. And we do have another challenges where some crops don't come at all because of the chemicals.
Not far from the farming cooperative, marine biologist Carl Fiati has spent years conducting his own research. He believes the algae fertilizer has the potential to turn Ghana and Africa as a whole into a hub for organic agriculture.
Production of algae that is integrated with fish is a very cost-effective way of producing cheap and ready available fertilizer for crop production. It could in future be an alternative to the conventional fertilizer that is applied.
Joyce Mensah is completely sold on the new approach. She started producing mango juice since she now harvests more and better quality fruit. At the moment, the juice is only sold locally, but if all goes well, she hopes to be able to expand her market in the future.
All the best of luck to everyone involved with that valuable social enterprise. It's time to say goodbye for this week. I hope you enjoyed the program. and have learned something new that you can put into practice to benefit your own community wherever you live. For now, I am Chris Alem signing off from Lagos.
See you next time, Chris. And to all of you, our viewers, we do want to encourage you to send us your thoughts and comments on the program, or share with us your experiences or the different methods you're using to protect and preserve our environment. Thank you for watching. I am Sandra Twinobio. Until next time, do your best to keep it green.
No.